Hi everyone, welcome to another Google Hangout done by my company, Silver Compass Digital. My name is Sam, and what I do and what my company does is to help small businesses like yourselves to be successful in terms of growing their social media following, growing the engagement on those channels, and ultimately growing sales through social media. So last week, I was invited by my friends at Constant Contact to present at the Trade Only National Show in Coventry, and I put together a presentation which is 4 steps to being successful at selling on social media. Now, by all means, this isn't a complete comprehensive program, but it is the 4 steps that I use and I follow when it comes to being successful with using social media as part of my business sales strategy and the strategies I use for my clients as well. So I thought it would be a useful presentation just to put on a bit of a video that hopefully you find useful and you'd like to sort of share with some of your colleagues, some of your clients, and hopefully implement some of the strategies that I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and just sort of share my screen so that you can see the presentation. If you have any questions about the presentation afterwards, or if you want to get in touch, I'm going to make sure that all of my contact details are in the description box below. There's also a slide in the presentation which tells you how to get in touch with me via email, via my Facebook page, my Twitter account, and also gives you a link to my email newsletter as well. So that's all of the blurb about me done. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started with the presentation. So as I said, this is just the program that I use and I found really successful over the last couple of months with my business in terms of using social media as the sort of start of a funnel when it comes to bringing people into a sort of sales cycle with my business and with some of the other businesses that I help manage their social feeds for. So as I said, if you want to get in contact with me afterwards, if you got any questions, or if you just want to say hello, these are all the ways that you can get in touch with me. And as I said as well, you're also going to have links down in the YouTube description box too. So what are we going to be covering today? First of all, what I want to take you through is how to pick the right channel for your business. And that's going to vary from business to business and ultimately what your aims are with your social media strategy as well. We're going to be talking a little bit about how to build a relationship as part of that social media strategy too, because if there's one thing people hate, it's being sold to when there's no sort of rapport going on. And I'm going to tell you some of the best ways that you can start building a relationship with the people who like and follow you on social media. We're also going to talk about how you can use your social media feeds to start capturing information and data about your followers, and obviously with their permission, sort of bringing them into your email marketing strategy as well, and sort of see how that sort of starts bringing you into a bit of a deeper relationship with people who are following you, and ultimately moving that on to where you want to be, which is making the sell. And I'm just going to take you through a couple of examples where I've done it, both on my Facebook page and on my email newsletter as well. I'm just going to point out a couple of things that you want to make sure you're really hot on when it comes to making the sell most successfully. So now we're in a world where it's not really a choice if we do social media or not anymore. It's more and more expected of brands, big in particular, but small increasingly, that they are present on social media. And there are lots of ways to connect with an audience and to connect with your fans of your business, your clients. Sometimes it can feel like there's really a new social media network getting set up every day. And one of the big things that people talk to me about and have real concerns over is, do they need to be everywhere? Because that's a really overwhelming thing for a small business. I mean, who has got the time unless, like me, you're in a business where you sort of teach people about social media and you manage social media. So that's where a lot of my clients are coming from. I imagine it's a big concern for a lot of you watching out there. That now there are so many ways to connect with people, it can be overwhelming. And I want to sort of take some of that pain away. I want to make sure that you're aware that you don't need to be everywhere. If you're in a few places and doing that really well and getting successful about bringing people in through social into your sales strategy, then that can be a social media strategy for your business as a whole. And also, I want to make you aware that it doesn't really matter what sort of business that you are. You can be successful using social media as a marketing strategy, as a sales strategy as well. When I was putting together this presentation, I scrolled through my own sort of Facebook feed and just to have a look at some of the promoted posts that are out there that were sort of trying to entice me in, trying to encourage me to take action on them. And this literally was from about a minute and a half of scrolling down. So within this, we got Hootsuite, who are one of the big social media management tools. We got sort of Pat Coffee up on the top right, which is all about sort of getting delivered delicious coffee. And if anyone knows me very well, that is a very, very well placed ad. We also got sort of Tough Mudder as well, which is one of these sort of charity challenges that you can sign up for. So just within a selection, there's just a massive range of businesses that are using social media as part of their marketing and sales strategy. Before we go any further, I just want to make this point clear and upfront. And it's a counterintuitive one, but don't sell too hard or too often on social media. Ultimately, people come to social media networks to be social, and the clue really there is that is in the title, social media. Don't forget that when it comes to sort of implementing a social media strategy for your business, of which sales will be a part, you're competing with people's friends and family. So if you are not sort of giving them something useful, giving them something that they find valuable, they're really going to switch off very, very quickly. That's not to say that you can't have your call to actions and your sales pitches, and I'll come on to that shortly. But make sure that you're doing it sparingly, and the majority of what you're posting is something that's really going to add value to your audience and that they're going to thank you for. So, step one of my 4 points to help you be successful with your social media sales is really right down to the basics, and that's finding the right channel for your business. So I like to think of sort of social media networks in two broadish camps, and you're going to want to pick the ones that really correspond to the strengths that you have as a business. On the one hand, you got the visual networks, which are things like Pinterest, Instagram, which has been growing massively over the last year. And if you do anything like design or you got really visual products that you sell, you absolutely want to be on Instagram. In fact, as an aside, one of my friends who's been very, very successful on Instagram is actually a personal trainer. The reason why she's successful is she tends to share a lot of examples of the sorts of exercises that you can be doing at home and sorts of healthier meals that you can cook and eat as well. So it's less sort of that she's got a product to sell, but what she's actually using Instagram to do is show off a lifestyle. Aside from pictures, you've also got YouTube and Vine there, which are video based too. And video is something that's going to be really, really important over the coming months and probably years of social media. So don't neglect them either if you've got sort of a visual slant to your business. On the other hand, you'll have the information-based networks, which are your Google Pluses, your LinkedIn's, your Twitters, which is where you tend to sort of share information, share links, and share stuff that really sort of builds the credibility of your business. And this is probably more aimed at sort of service businesses like myself. So I'll tweet a lot about what's going on in social media, what's going on in marketing. I'll intersperse that with sort of opinion pieces and information pieces that I've written on my blog as well. That's probably something that you're sort of quite familiar with when it comes to LinkedIn. Maybe not so much when it comes to Twitter, but I think it's a great network for you to be sharing information on as well. Not only because, not only is one of the great things about Twitter is that it has really active communities within it in sort of specific niches. So, I mean, I do a lot of work with a local charity of my that's close to where I live, and Twitter's been great in terms of sort of connecting with other people who do similar work to that charity, and sort of sharing ideas and just connecting. You'll notice here that I've not included Facebook in either of these camps, and that's because I think it's quite firmly in the middle. You can use Facebook as a visual network primarily, or as an information sharing network too. I place it in the middle because I do both things on my Facebook page and on the Facebook pages that I manage. But by all means, but make sure, I'd say, that you don't neglect Facebook. One of the things that's been talked about a lot over the last 12 months is decline in Facebook reach. That is absolutely true. It is a problem, but if you are managing your Facebook page well, um, and you are sort of sharing stuff that people find useful and are commenting on and are sharing regularly, you won't have some of the problems that other people are having. It's also bearing in mind that it's got over 1 billion active users every month. So that's a really, really big platform for you to be promoting yourself on. There's a big audience out there for you. Um, so don't neglect it. First of all, it's a lot more hard work than some of the other networks to start getting traction on. But if you put in the effort, it can pay off real dividends. So how do you pick which of these social networks is the right one for you? You got to ask yourself a couple of questions. Those include if you sell products or services. I spoke just a minute ago about how sort of visual products work really well on the visual networks like Pinterest. Services tend to work better on places like Twitter and LinkedIn. So ask yourself that question first of all. Also, if you are led by sort of visuals like your products, or if you're led by information, that's another another sort of clue as to which network you should fall into. So I had a couple of examples of this on the right hand side. First of all, at the top we got a brand called Jimmy's Iced Coffee. They do an awesome job on Facebook and on Instagram as well. This is where this screenshot's taken from. And yeah, they've got these amazing sort of iced coffee bottles that they sell in most supermarkets now, and a lot of what they share is images of their bottles, and also images of where they're based, because they're based down in Cornwall, and the guy who runs it, Jimmy, is really into surfing, so he'll often sort of take pictures of the beach on his phone when he's about to surf, and share them on his Facebook page or on his Instagram account. And that sort of really starts to sell the brand and the lifestyle as well, not just the products that they have pictures of. On the other hand, you got Constant Contact, who are an email marketing solution, and obviously they spend an awful lot of their time sort of trying to make sure that what they are doing is answering questions of their audience and their clients. So they tend to write an awful lot of really great content on their blog, share it all over their LinkedIn pages, their Twitter accounts, and it's really, really useful. And I know that they've got a load of traction from it as well, because they built up a reputation now that they are helpful, and they will answer sort of the questions that you have. So if you are sort of a more information-led business like that, or provide a service, not it doesn't necessarily have to be sort of a constant contact type service, but if you are service led as well, it might be worth thinking about sort of some of the pain points that your customers have, and sharing sort of helpful advice and get rounds like that. It also would help to think about who your clients are and where they're likely to be. So if you are marketed towards teens and people in their early 20s, it absolutely makes sense for you to be on something like Instagram, because that's where a lot of the demographic growth has been happening over the last 12 months. Um, Alternatively, if you are a business who sells to other businesses, it absolutely makes sense for you to be on LinkedIn rather than Instagram, um, just because those sort of relationships form on LinkedIn, and they don't form on other networks. But finally, and this is often overlooked, what you want to think about is which channel you like to be on the most, because it it just doesn't follow that just because everyone's on Facebook, you should be too. If you absolutely hate it, then you either need to find someone in your team who enjoys using that network and pass it over to them, or just think about another network that you do like to use. Because if you don't like using the channel, the likelihood is that either it will sort of fall to the wayside and you won't get anything done with it, or people will see through it and they'll see that you're not actually enjoying being there, and you won't see the results that you want to see. So sorry about the pause, just have to grab a little mouthful of water, because I'm talking a lot here, and if I if I'd had like a live audience, then I'm getting sort of back and forth. But here we go. This is step two, and it's talking about building on the relationship that you get with your social audience. So I said right at the beginning that people really hate to be sold to, and that's especially on social media. Um, and I think it's worth mentioning again that people come to social media to be social, and you are really competing with people's friends and family. Um, One of the big reasons as well that it's difficult to sell directly on social media is because it's such a shallow relationship. It's really easy for someone to click like on a Facebook page or follow someone on Twitter. So you don't you don't really sort of have that investment uh, with your clients or with your audience that you would have if they were in sort of, for example, an email marketing list, um, because the difference there is with an email marketing list or with someone sort of subscribing to a blog, they've actually uh, opted in to have regular communication with you, um, sent directly to their personal inbox. By contrast, with the social media, although they have opted in, uh, what they've opted into is sort of seeing your updates in their news feed, in terms of Facebook, and just in the Twitter stream in terms of Twitter. Um, so the likelihood of them seeing your updates just as they're scrolling through are immediately lessened, because the relationship there is that much shallower. And I would say that it's at this point where you need to really think about building a relationship with your audience. And I try and use my social media feeds um, as a way to sort of drive people towards my blog, my website, and my email newsletter. And that's because I know once I have them subscribed there, I can have a more uh, deeper and specific conversation with them over those channels, which ultimately would lead to a sale. One of the best ways to do that is to really gain their trust by providing useful content on a regular basis. And that could be anything that your audience find valuable. So to give the example of what I do with my own social network, my audience is primarily small business owners who need help with their social media marketing and email marketing. So I try and share tips and information around those sorts of areas, sort of paired with content that they can download as well, in exchange for signing up to my marketing list. So I want to give you an example of how that would work on my Facebook page. So I'm going to go ahead and just get all of this up now, and I want to talk you through this 1 week example. So on Mondays, I tend to share a photo album that's full of motivational quotes. I put in brackets there, superstar tip, use 4 pictures. The reason for that is that if you share 4 pictures at once, it will come up, they'll all be previewed in the Facebook newsfeed. And albums, rather than individual pictures, tend to get a bigger reach. So on Tuesday, what I'll do is I'll share a tip and something useful piece of advice for my audience. Wednesday, I might ask them a question, try and get a bit of a conversation going on my page. Friday, I'll sort of round things off with a fun fact or something that sort of shows the personality of my business. Like, for example, last week when I was speaking in Coventry, I put up a couple of pictures of me on stage, and sort of some of the pictures of the arena as well, because it was a really cool place to be invited to speak. Thursday, I sort of leave this for last because this is where I would sort of put a call to action post, which would be either pushing people towards my blog, a new article I'd written, or signing up for my email newsletter, or providing them a link to download content in exchange for that email address. And I leave that for last because what I want to tell you is something called the 80-20 rule. And that's the idea that 80% of your content should be stuff that adds value to your audience. Only 20% of it should be stuff that is really sort of selling to them or asking them to take action. And it's in that way that you sort of build up that relationship where your audience sees you as someone of value, sees you as someone that they can trust. And if you've done the 80% right, the 20% is going to come so much easier, because they've built up the trust already, and they're ready to take action if that's something that you want them to be doing. What I'll say again is that it doesn't necessarily matter which days of the week you do each of these different things on, other than the motivational Monday, but you could call that something else like midweek motivation and put it on a Wednesday. The important thing to take away here is that 4 of your posts over a working week should be something that really adds value and is useful for your audience, only one of them should be asking them to take action. So examples of the sorts of posts that really sort of add value, show the personality of a page. I put a motivational Monday post of some of my images there that I shared a couple of weeks back, and just it was a bit of a focus on marketing that week, and much like I've just told you, talked about how you should focus on being helpful rather than selling too hard. Innocent is my other example, and they are just awesome. And if you follow anyone on Facebook, other than me, obviously, make sure that you follow Innocent, because they do such an amazing job. And this is something they do regularly on a Friday. They'll share a dad joke. It's actually one of the things that I've just started to look out for now on Fridays, because who doesn't enjoy a really, really awful punny joke? Okay, so we're over halfway through now. We're going to start talking about step 3, which is making sure that you can communicate with the audience that you're starting to build. Now, it may come as a bit of a shock to you, or it may well not be a shock at all. But the data that people sort of who like your page have, their email address, their name, that doesn't belong to you. When someone likes your Facebook page or follows you on Twitter, their email address, their contact details still belong to the social network. But that doesn't mean that you can't ask people to share their data with you. And I talked a little bit about that beforehand, with the call to action post that you can have, and asking people to sort of sign up for your mailing list or subscribe to your blog. And that's exactly what you should be doing. Rather than trying to sell directly on social media, one of the best ways to do it is to ask people to opt in to an email newsletter. And I want to share a couple of examples of how you can do this. And I use Constant Contact because I think that's one of the best tools out there, particularly for small business owners. But there are plenty of apps that you can use to help you with this. So these are the two tools that I use, sort of embedded within my Facebook page. And I use both of these to encourage people from my Facebook page to get over to my email newsletter, to get more information, and to get more exclusive tips as well. So I've got at the top there something called a join my mailing list form, which just sits there inside of my Facebook page, and if anyone puts in their email address or their names in there, they'll just go directly to my Constant Contact account. The same for the bit at the bottom there, which is where I'm able to share a bit of downloadable content in exchange for an email address. I'm able to host the piece of content within my Constant Contact account, and then as soon as that content's been downloaded, the email address goes in as well. So there are two ways there that I'm sort of using that tool to sort of get data from my Facebook page into my email marketing list. And I've found it something really easy to do, as long as when you're doing it, you're just doing it sparingly. And because you've spent the time up front building the trust and building the relationship with your audience, it doesn't take an awful lot to just ask them if they'd like to receive something more regularly from you and more bespoke and more in depth as well. So now we're really onto the home straight, and this is about making the sale. So you've done everything before now. You picked out the right social channel for you. You've thought about the ways in which you can start building a relationship with your audience and building up rapport. You've now sort of used the sort of 20% of your 80-20 rule to sort of encourage them onto sort of subscribing with you. And now you're ready to make that sale to them. And this is really, really important. If you do take one thing away from this little presentation, just take this away. When you're making a sale, ensure that you have one very clear call to action. Don't give people loads of options. They've done tons and tons of studies on this. And sort of when it comes to sort of email marketing as well, when you have a newsletter which has got one option versus a newsletter that's got like 3, 4, 9 options, you actually get more sales from the newsletter that just has the one. I don't know why this is the case. It just happens to be. So these are a couple of examples of my my newsletters and how I've got very specific singular call to actions within them. So on the left, what I've got is a newsletter talking about a social media kickstarting session with me. And yeah, it's got a load of information at the top, but there, right at the bottom, is one singular button asking them to sort of book there, and that's where they can take action. On the right hand side, it's a different newsletter, but this time talking about an event that I'm going to be running in next week, I think. Yeah, next week. Goes to show quite how much is going on in my brain right now. But as I say, there's just one singular call to action there at the bottom. This also sort of applies to call to action posts that you might have on Facebook. So I'll just sort of go over those with you as well. So that's another call to action post for the event that I just showed you the newsletter for. And you'll see that it sort of gives a little bit of information there about what the course is and when the course is, but very specific. Find out more about the course and book your space. Just the one singular URL to send people to. On the other side, this is sort of a Facebook post for encouraging people to download a piece of content, sort of asking them about what might be getting them stuck on Facebook. But again, just one singular call to action to ask them to download that plan for a brief content overview on the Facebook working week. So let's just briefly go over what we've spoken about today, which is finding the right social network that's right for you. There's so many out there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be using all of them. Think about what type of business you are, what you want your social media to achieve for your business, and that's the way in which you're gonna start off in the right sort of successful way. Pick something that's the right fit for you, and start building up a relationship with your audience. Make sure that you're sort of sharing stuff that's of value to them, stuff that they're going to be really thankful to receive. Really sort of keeping the calls to action down into that 20% of the stuff that you're sharing. Make sure you're able to communicate with your audience. So sort of looking into the apps that will help you to sort of push them onto a mailing list, or into sort of subscribing to your blog, so that you're really building a much deeper relationship with your audience. And that's the point where, once they've given you that permission of being able to mail to them, you're really able to look at making a sale to your audience. So I hope that you found this presentation really useful. As I said, all of the resources that I've been talking about today, I'm just going to put a link to all of them down at the bottom in the YouTube description box. If you need any further help, and you want to sort of talk about sales for your social media, I'd be more than happy to sort of have a free half-hour coaching call with you. All you need to do is email me at sam@silvercompassdigital.com, and hopefully we can work something out that will really help your business be successful when it comes to social media. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for taking the time to sort of listen to what I had to say today, and I really, really hope that you found today useful. So take care, and I'll see you next time.